Welcome to Talk to Me Tuesday. I'm your host, Madi B. And today we have an important show with an important topic. We've been speaking about change, which has been prevalent in our society. This all has been brought to the forefront with the familiar story we all heard about, George Floyd. Some of you may or may have not seen the video, but this story introduced a lot of change. We saw the police brutality, racism, injustice, and a cry for help. Today, we want to open up the lines of communication and have a healthy, open discussion of some of these concerns, questions, and solutions. I want to start off by introducing today's panel. We have with us today the founding partner of D. Miller and Associates PLLC, attorney Darren A. Miller. We have a retired Houston Police Lieutenant, Harry Zamora. And we have CEO, co-founder of TikTok Services, Ken Henry. So I want to thank you guys for being on the show today. And I want to start off with hearing a little bit of your backgrounds and how your backgrounds relate to today's topic, social injustice.
Hey, Madi. Hi, guys. My name is attorney Darren Miller, as Madi just suggested. Graduated Texas A&M University. I have a master's of business administration from University of St. Thomas, and of course, a law degree from Thurgood Marshall University. I've been practicing law for the last 20 years, and God has really blessed us with a lot of business and cases and things of that nature. But with everything that's been going on, it's time for us to get active, to get mobile, to talk about things that we wouldn't ordinarily talk about, and that's one of the main reasons that I'm involved.
Awesome. And Harry Zamora?
Hi, Marty. My name's Harry Zamora. I'm an honorably retired Houston Police Lieutenant. I joined the Houston Police Department in 1980, and I honorably retired in 2012. I'm a small business owner, and I'm also a community volunteer. I'm very concerned with the state of affairs, the current state of affairs. And in fact, I've run for political office because of the injustices that have been happening within our communities at the hands of some law enforcement officers. So I think that I will continue to seek elective office to try to make that change.
Wow, awesome. And then lastly, we have Ken Henry with us.
Yes, thank you. Hello, guys. Hey, hi. So I'm Ken Henry, and I am a co-founder and CEO of TikTok Services. That's TIKTOK Services. And we're based out of Los Angeles, hopefully soon to be also based in Houston, Texas. Also, I'm a sociologist and certified life coach, and I heavily with traumatic brain injury, and I do that through the Brain Rehabilitation and Injury Network over in Orange County, California. Excited to be here. My background is extensive as it relates to this. Foster care, I did that for many years, for about 8 years, managing foster homes, working with at-risk programs within the county of Orange in California, up until, working with victims of human trafficking, and today having my own organization fighting that. And mentorship is a huge part of my heart, always have been and will be. And so I have Code Black, which I'm so excited about. And hopefully I'll be able to tell you a little bit more about that as we talk into the interview. But that is basically a mentorship program for Black boys ages 12 to 18.
Awesome. So as you guys can hear, we do have a strong panel today. And all of you guys have mentioned one thing that you guys have in common, and that is change. So we're really going to uncover, some of these issues that we're having right now in our society. And this may be something, comment below, this may be something we do bring in a different episode as well, and continue this problem and having an open, healthy conversation about this. So I just want to bring you guys back to the beginning. I mentioned George Floyd's story and how it introduced change. And we've seen a lot of calls for change. What are your thoughts on the current atmosphere, and how do you guys plan on making this change going forward?
Well, Madi, I think we're doing that, quite frankly, as we speak right now. These are uncomfortable, difficult discussions to be having. In the afternoon here on a Tuesday, we don't want to be talking about the fact that someone has lost their life. But unfortunately, because of that, we are seeing a lot of things that are moving towards the better. The fact that other races are reaching out together, discussing things that they ordinarily wouldn't, putting movements together. moving in a better direction than where we were, trying to do things that let the folks know that the status quo is no longer okay. We have to move forward, that we are essentially enslaving a whole group of people. And what do we need to do to move past that? We're a better country than that. We're a better country when we're working together, when we're working as a team, when we're moving in the right direction. And unfortunately, we're moving in separate directions. We need to figure out, what are we going to do to get us back on the right task to moving towards a brighter future for everybody.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I think you're right. It starts with, we've had some of these episodes already that you guys have already joined us on and kind of had that open discussion. But we're really going to get deep today, and we're really going to uncover a lot of the things that you guys are talking about. And we have on the police officer side, we're going to get some of those opinions and some of those answers that you guys may have. So I want to kind of shift over to retired HPD Lieutenant Zamora. You are in a unique position of being a police officer, but first and foremost, a proud Hispanic American in this country. So what was your first impression about the George Floyd video?
Okay, look, I've been a cop for 40 years, and I have seen a lot in my time. I've been on the streets. I've worked just about every division that you can within a major metropolitan agency. HPD is the fourth largest department in the country, thousands of officers. And quite frankly, I was disgusted at what I saw. I mean, I have seen a lot, like I said, in my time on the streets, but we saw a lynching as far as I'm concerned. And I was just absolutely horrified. I mean, I think everybody was. And I think that's what brought us to this point, is that we just had enough. And, as a cop, I've had the opportunity to command and lead subordinates, hundreds of them at a time. And I've figured out early on that I may have a problem officer, and I try to bring it to the attention of my superiors, but it usually stops. A lot of times it'll stop for whatever reason. So you've got to get to the head of that agency. That's where the change needs to happen. It needs to happen at the top. And I think that it's unfortunate what happened and what keeps happening in our major cities across this country. But I think that we're in the right direction. I think it's time for change, and we need to act fast. We need to do what we can to even the field and stop the racial injustices.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned how you felt, which was disgusted was the word that you used. Now, I kind of want, before I open up to the panel, how did some of your other colleagues or officers react to this video?
I've seen the gamut. I've seen where some people were talking about excited delirium, that's a state of mind, if you will, or it's something to do with a combatant individual where they may not know what they're doing and they could pose a risk to officers. And so I hate to say it, but some of them have actually said, well, they were talking about excited delirium. And so that's part of the process in training, that they have you hold them down, and to control the situation. So it's run from that to like how I feel, which is absolutely horrified and quite frankly disgusted at what happened, because I've been a street cop a long time, and I've run into prisoners that have fought with me, and there was nothing to stop that officer. And this is my opinion, from my perspective, there was nothing to stop him from sitting him up on the car. He's handcuffed. He's already under control. Leave it at that. There's no point in continuing to apply that pressure to his neck. And it was just wrong.
But and you know what you just said, a lot of people think like that. Leave it at that. It didn't have to be taken as far as that. So let's hear from some of the panel members. What are your thoughts as far as what Harry just mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, of course, just like the guys, I mean, and I don't think anybody that has a soul would look at that and bat the other eye, unless there's just major malice in the heart, which I know that we do have that do exist. Let's be real. We have that with entities like the KKK. We have that with entities like, American Renaissance, the alt-right, but the average, human being, with a normal, decent heart, I feel. For me, it was just like, of course, we've been knowing this has been happening, and it was not like, unfortunately, this was a new thing, which is that's the sad reality of it. But it was very painful to see anybody. I don't care if it was a child. You know, we've heard the narrative of this grown man, but it doesn't matter if it was a child. I don't care who it was, to see somebody's life be taken right before your eyes and it's videoed. And so I think, yeah, everyone, there was enraged, there was disgust. I felt all that, you know. And again, you know, for me, it was like, personally, I was like, okay, now it's time to even step it up even more. Right. And so, I mean, I made a video that I put on my channel right away, just talking about that. And then right away started, you know, dealing with the law enforcement that I have in my sphere, because I work very closely with them in LA. Like, what's happening, you know, with this? And are you guys even involved in this? You know, because I think it is a national responsibility when we see something like that. But I feel like, you know, for me, my biggest thing is, and I have been screaming this for like literally probably the last 3 years. It needs to be a major, like, this is not just a little system change. There's cultures, and I've been speaking about this a lot, and there's cultures within cultures. The police department, and I come from a person who has police in my family, very close friends that are police officers. And now, can I say I can relate to a police officer? Absolutely not, because I have never been one, but I can totally understand, and I hear the same stuff. There's a culture within that entity as well, and that culture needs to be changed. All right, because their culture has a mindset as well, right? And let's not get it mistaken one bit. The police job is a very difficult job. I still believe a police job is a very noble job, right? However, what we have seen and what is happening, and we have to address it and call it what it is that a lot of these police officers have this concept, a notion that they are above the law and they are God with the way that they speak and they treat the citizens that they're supposed to protect and serve. And I've experienced it once in my life, you know, where it wasn't even called for, right? But because I know my rights, you know, I knew how to speak up, stand up for myself, and kind of check them in that place, right? So I think that it's a major culture change, like Harry's talking about. It needs to really, really happen, and we can't expect it to this change. You know, I hear this changing from the inside, but as you just heard, this man who was a part of the force for many, many years was in the inside, tried to make changes. So unfortunately, it's going to take this noise that we're making, is going to take this consistency to really push this thing, to make sure that legally there's pressure applied and that people are held accountable and those things. And I do believe, yes, they're great officers. And my heart still believe there are way more great officers than there are those bad officers. However, those bad officers exist, and they should not exist on that force that's there to protect the people. So
yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about those bad officers in kind of that comment. But Attorney Darren Miller, you want to shed some light on what he just mentioned, the legal perspective and all of that good stuff.
You know, Marty, you know, when this first happened, man, I mean, my heart was hurt. I mean, my heart was hurt I mean, are we really, we live in the greatest country in the world. And how could anyone, a part of the society, a police officer who we're supposed to look up to, how could someone like that just take the life of somebody like it was nothing? Like it was absolutely worthless. And just seeing that, it killed me. It hurt me to my core. And it's like so many other people, it's like no more. We cannot just sit around and do nothing and sweep it under the rug like we've done so many other times. But the thing that's really encouraged me about this whole situation is that we have officers like Harry stepping forward now, like my partner's wife, and she's a Caucasian woman, stepping forward. That people are realizing this is not a Black problem. This is not a class problem. This is an American problem. This is a problem for all of us, because if at any point we're leaving a whole race of people behind or treating them as though they're nothing, we're hurting everything that the American culture is supposed to be about. But what I'm really glad that I'm seeing is that you're seeing, I think, the start of some systemic change. You're seeing the start of it. I know we're going to get involved in some of that, but I'm very encouraged by the fact that we have people stepping forward, companies stepping forward. Something happened even yesterday. I know we're going to talk about it, but I'm just glad that people are starting to figure out we've got to do something about this to make sure that crap like this gets minimized, and we start seeing much less of this before we wipe it out.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to, we're definitely going to go in all these aspects. You guys brought out a lot of great points. But most importantly, there's a lot of passion and a lot of passion to go to the step of change. Okay. I know we keep saying that, but it's now we're walking the walk. So I'm going to go back to Lieutenant Harry Zamora. So we've seen a lot of questionable incidents. You guys just kind of mentioned that. A lot of things in the media, a lot of questions. And what comes to your mind when you hear people say dirty cops, police brutality, corruption, culture within the culture? Hearing those things, which the common person, they are speaking of that. How do you feel inside about those words?
You know, as a cop, I'm actually hurt, I guess, in a sense, because when they talk about that, I feel like they're grouping me in to the whole group of cops. And I need to tell people, look, you know, just because some are bad doesn't mean they're all bad. And I get that. They're lashing out at the entity, the government, the establishment, you know, the department. They're looking at it as a whole. And these people, you know, they're all dirty. Well, there's some of us that are fighting within that organization for change. And you know, I've personally dealt with a lot of the dirty cops, and I'm still dealing with a lot of them. And so to me, it actually upsets me when people say they're all the same, you know, they're all dirty. And so we need to isolate the bad ones. And it all starts there again, like I said, with the person at the top. You cannot make change. You cannot fire people. You cannot get rid of the problem. You cannot do anything unless you're running that organization. So what we have to do is we either have to get people to be voted into those offices, to ascend to those positions so that they can make the positive change that we need, because they will be able to determine who gets to wear a badge and who doesn't. And let me say this, you know, there's so many dynamics involved in a department in hiring personnel. There's so many things that go into it that we really need to look at, like the unions that protect the employees. You know, they all have a right to due process. I mean, I think everyone does. And so a lot of times what happens is these unions protect cops that would typically get fired by a smaller department because they have union representation, which means legal representation for basically paying their $20 or $30 a month dues. So there's just so many dynamics that need to change, you know, within departments. And I think a lot of it too starts with, let's be transparent. Let's let officers' records be made public so that people can see the kind of cops that they have on the streets. And the unions and big departments have fought against that for years. They don't want you to open those records. They don't want you to see how many assaults they have, how many times they've got, there's been a call to their house where they beat their wife, or they got arrested for drunk, or all these things that happens that is hidden from the public. We need to expose that. We need somebody that's willing to do that.
Absolutely. And can I say something, Mark, on that? And you know,
Yeah.
this with the whole qualified immunity too, which is why I think that definitely needs to end, because of this same thing that you're speaking of. I'm very, very passionate about the transparency because it is a double standard and it's hypocritical. And the reason why I said this is because, so these cops, you know, for instance, like with David Chauvin, right? So all these things, he had a lot of things beforehand that he was involved in, you know, that harassment in the community, things of that nature, that because of qualified immunity was not able to be brought into that case, right? So if I go to court for anything, they're going to dig up everything they can find from the time I was in sixth grade. If I, you know, was suspended from school, had fights in school, anything like that, to try to diminish my character, right? And to make me look in a certain light. Well, I think it's unfair that the police officers, right, who has all this power, and apparently the power to take someone's life because it's happening, that they are not required to be transparent and exposed as well. So I 100% agree with that. And I think that's something that we're going to continue to push. I know that has already been sent to Congress, I think by Justin Amash, if I'm not mistaken. That's who already presented that. And they're already dealing with that, trying to see if we're going to end that or not. But, you know, that needs to end for sure, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys are talking about the word transparency. Attorney Darren Miller, how important is the word transparency to you, whether it's in the legal aspect or just what we're talking about right now?
Well, I mean, I think Kenny did a great job of characterizing it perfectly. I mean, the police officer should be held to the same standard that we are in that regard. You know, if our information is going to be made available to them, then their information should be made available to us. The other point I wanted to kind of bring up at this point is that if you go back and you look at some of these instances with regards to these police shootings, issues of brutality, things of that nature, there's one thing that seems to be somewhat of a common element. Well, actually, two things. The first is education, is that each one of the officers that are involved in these particular shootings, and again, I don't want anyone to think that I'm anti-officer, because I'm not. They're a necessary evil in our society. They put their lives on the line every day, and I don't know that I could do that. So I don't want to suggest that. But the one thing that I am noticing is education. The amount of education that most of the officers that are involved is very limited. Typically, high school education, maybe a little bit of college, but it's very limited. And then you also go back and see their training. If you go back and look at some of their records, again, very limited with regards to training, interaction. And because of that, I think you're seeing some direct correlations between the fact that some of these people who aren't being properly educated, who aren't being properly trained, they feel like we can do whatever the hell we want to. And for the most part, they're getting away with it for so long.
Yes, and you're bringing up a great topic that I wanted to uncover and get to. I know this is a difficult topic. Some of you guys that are watching are like saying yes or have a lot of questions. We do have some comments on standby right now. But I want to uncover the process of making it into the police department and even touch a little bit about that training. How long is the training for police officers, Harry Zamora, and what's the main objective that they focus on in the training?
That's a good question. Look, it depends on the agency. It depends on the state. It depends on whether or not it's a state or federal job or just a local police department. But they're going to have different training standards and requirements, educational requirements, and so on. It's just going to depend on where you're trying to get hired on. I know a lot of the federal jobs require a bachelor's degree. Some of the smaller departments require high school. Some require college. But quite frankly, all that aside, it boils down to you can have the best trained cop that's gone to as many classes and has a PhD. And quite frankly, a lot of cops that I worked with had doctorate degrees. A lot of them were attorneys. A lot of them, some were pharmacists, some were doctors and nurses. But it all boils down to their character. It's a character issue. And I think more important, and I'm not to take away from training, but I think that you've got to look at the character, the person, and who they are. Because, look, you're going to have racist, prejudiced discriminators, racist or prejudiced non-discriminators. So what I mean by that is this. There's going to be people that have a propensity towards racism, but they don't carry it out. They don't act on it. Those are racist non-discriminators. Then you have racists that are discriminators that feel that way, and then they act on it. So those are the things I think that are more critical to any agency than so much training, because you can get all the training you want, but if you hate and you're a bad person, no amount of training is going to change that. So that's what I want to focus on. I want to focus on, let's look and see who these people are, where they're coming from, who they are, because you can weed out a lot. Because we all can agree there are very educated racists, right?
Yeah.
I mean, look, you're bringing up a great point. Yeah, you're bringing up a great point. And I kind of want to see on, some people, that's been a discussion that it takes doctors, attorneys a little bit longer than it does on the training on the police side. So just putting some weeks or anything like that, just so that our viewers can know, how long does the training portion really take? I know we've heard some stuff in the media, just kind of want to uncover that.
Okay, if you go to when I went through the academy in 1980, the academy was 4.5 months, and that was it. But it was sponsored through the Sam Houston State University. Now they have training agencies, and we're talking about in Texas. to be a Texas licensed peace officer. Some of the universities or even colleges like HCC or U of H will have like a 2-year associate's program for training. So it just depends. And there again, it depends on the agency. If you go through a basic police academy, it could be 6 months at one of the local colleges. You can get a job at a local constable's office or a small department like Pearland or Alvin, or I don't know, whatever, small department you look to get hired onto. So it's going to depend on the agency requirements, and I know now they're always changing. They're always upgrading. They're always imposing new hiring standards and new educational standards and so on. But it really depends on the agency. But it doesn't take a 4-year degree, to be a major city cop or even a small town cop.
And how do you guys feel about kind of hearing that? It doesn't take a 4-year degree. I mean, these are people serving, protecting, have, weapons and stuff like that. I mean, that's what another common topic that's out there. And those are the people protecting the common community or society, however you want to look at it. What are your thoughts about that?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Dan, go ahead.
I was just going to say, for me, I really don't care, honestly, about the educational part of it too much. You do need to be educated, absolutely, in law enforcement. I think that, but can't heavily be there. I think the problem is they need to be heavily educated in sociology and understanding society and cultures and people. But even more than that, there needs to be hands-on, realistic trainings. And I don't know if this is going on or not. But one of the things is they need to have mandatory trainings within each of these departments that is ongoing, whether that's quarterly, whether it's every 6 months, definitely I would say quarterly or 6 months, to where people are coming in there and they're getting cultural competent training when you're going into communities. And why is that important? That is important because if I am a white man officer and I grew up mainly around a white community in the suburbs, went to majority white schools, that's all my friends I selected, and I really don't know about Latin culture, Black culture, Asian, Indian, and all this other than what the media gives me. And so I form the narrative that's around me, right? And whatever that may be. So if I get the narrative that Black men are very aggressive and very dangerous and strong and all this stuff here, then when I get tasked to go handle this community and serve in that community and protect that community, well, when I get into altercation, there's certain things I just don't know about the average Black person. So if I get one that is, he knows his rights and he's tired of being profiled, his brother was killed or his uncle not too long ago, and so now you are coming to him with something stupid and he gives you an attitude, then I, as this white man who doesn't know their culture, immediately gets afraid, and I think my hand goes for my gun right away. Because, versus the man who, whether you're white, Black, whatever, who already have a sense of culture and understand certain mannerisms and things of that nature. You understand, the lingo, the energy, all that is very, very important. You're not so quick to go to your gun. You're going to try to, uphold your ground, but you're going to really be able to talk and de-escalate the situation. So what I'm seeing is, and what most of these videos are showing, and again, this has been going on, we must say, is that they're lacking in being able to the training to de-escalate things properly. So what I would love is more of an education on those kind of things, and a quick little side story. When I were managing foster homes, whenever teenagers would get, I need to talk, you're dealing with a traumatized kid. So sometimes they want to hurt themselves or try to hurt you. And we've had knives coming at us, all kind of branches, bricks, you name it, even CDs sometimes, broken, trying to come at you. We were trained in certain ways, first of all, to never take anyone down alone. And there were certain trainings to where we would take them down in certain manners to where it would lower the risk of hurting them as well as ourselves, and just hold them down until they de-escalate. But nobody's holding someone blocking their air passages, anything that was dangerous. And we're trained in how to talk to them while they're down to kind of de-escalate them, to the point to where sometimes we were able to actually move away from them and while they're still there, right? And then they get up. So I'm just saying there's different trainings. Now, of course, if you're dealing with someone who is mental, okay, that again, there needs to be trainings for that, because who you're going to encounter on the street, some people have mental illness. That's a fact, right? So there needs to be ongoing trainings with that. What I'm seeing, and this is my personal opinion, is I'm seeing when I see these videos and I see these different cases, it's the same thing. This like guerrilla / UFC cop that wants to wrestle fight somebody to the ground by their neck, throw them, slam them. They can break someone, give them brain damage, concussions, all kind of things. I see a lack of training when it comes down to those type of things. And I feel like I would want to see, I'm more concerned about that education versus then a traditional school education, because a lot of us get this. And, like he said, some have PhDs, and that does not mean that changed the way they view community and the way they go in and handle that. So.
And this is one of the reasons why I love this type of forum, because we get to have discussions and we agree, we disagree. And although Kenny makes some excellent points, where he is less concerned with the education, I'm more concerned with the education. Because, and again, I know, Kenny, I do know what you mean. Because my feeling is though, when you are more educated with regards to your communities, your people, the history of a certain people that you're dealing with, it's more difficult to take advantage of them when you understand their plight, where they've been, where they've come from. Wow, have we really? Is this what the police? This is how the police officers started. This is what's going on. Okay, I need to change that. The more you're educated, the more you understand, the more you can, as Kenny said, de-escalate these situations to make things better, so it doesn't get to a gun shooting type situation and things of that nature.
Yeah, Harry, tell us your opinion. I know I see you over there, taking it all in, and we want to kind of hear your feedback as well.
I'm dying to tell y'all, look, let me give y'all a little bit of inside information here, okay, on these training classes, because trust me, we get training, and more training. We get so much training, I'm sick of training. We get training in cultural diversity. We get training in de-escalation techniques. Every year, the same training. Look, I've sat in them classes, and I've heard the guy say, oh, geez, when is lunch? Oh, God, it's another BS class. Or, it's you can get all the training you want, but if you don't care, if your character is bad, you're not going to listen to it. You're not going to apply it. You're going to get it, but you're not going to pay attention to it. And it's going to go in one ear and out the other. You're going to take a test. You're going to pass it. You're going to have that class out of the way. And then you're going to go back to doing what you want to do. And that's, folks, I'm sorry, but that's the way it is in training. I've sat in them classes. And I sat with them old heads, and they're like, when's lunchtime? Or, oh, God, this guy shouldn't be telling us this. Or, so we get all the training. We get cultural diversity, use of force, de-escalation. It goes on and on and on. And it's a person issue. That's what I've been saying. It's a character issue. It's in the hiring standards. You can train everybody. Everybody gets the same training. We go to training month after month, and you either are receptive to it or you think it's a bunch of crap. And that's from the inside perspective.
And I love all the perspectives that you guys kind of brought to the table, because we're hearing training cultural, we're hearing training from de-escalating, and actually from someone in the inside. And all of you guys all together have almost that same passion of the training, picking the right person, the right culture with the right background, all that good stuff. And so let's kind of uncover some of these comments that we have that are kind of on standby. So guys, we have some comments. Adriana saying this has been going on for years. Thank God for cameras and whistleblowers on the force. Justice is now. I have another comment from Chriselle saying, I agree with Ken that being an officer is a noble job and should be held as such. It's the type of job where we just can't have any bad apples. I have another comment from Road Stray saying, you can't train people to not hate. That's the truth. And you know what? I love it. I love that we're uncovering this topic. And I love that we're all talking about this openly and, most importantly, healthy discussions. I kind of want to turn it over to Ken here. You are a proud mentor and founder of a group of young men ages 12 through 18. You kind of mentioned that, called Code Black. Tell us a little bit about this and how hearing the police perspective affects the group of young men you mentor.
Okay, so the reason why, for instance, I think the name is very, very significant. And the reason why I chose that name is because of Black codes. aka Black laws. All right, that were put into place. This was after Emancipation Proclamation. And if you know anything about those laws, these were legal laws that were put in American society to basically keep blacks in their place afterwards, to make to where they couldn't do certain things that whites could do, couldn't go certain places. It was a certain behavior, right? So it was a way to check them. So I thought, well, wow, how awesome would that be to take that, flip that, and do Code Black to teach them the codes of, let's just be honest, of what it is, of generally just being Black in America. And as it relates, so there's a component that deals with law enforcement as far as knowing your rights, because too many times most people don't spend time, and this is why, like what Brother Darren was saying, I think we were saying the same thing, because when he was talking about education, he was talking about education on the culture and the people that you're going to be serving. And that's exactly something I want to make sure that these boys understand, is to learn your rights and make sure that parents, not just these boys, but the family, because when I do mentor, it's whoever's those guardians too. They need to have a buy-in. If their buy-in is not there, then no, because you're responsible for this child, right? That we're going to be in our hands. So you need to make sure you know who we are and that kind of thing. But they have a responsibility to teach as well the laws and learn them themselves. So because what happens when you're engaged with a police officer and you have all this passion? How many videos have we seen? They're cursing and this and that, and it's all this passion. And you look at it, they're right. They're being profiled. This officer is making no sense while he has a motive of why he's trying to stop. He's trying to find something out, but he's going about it wrong. But because he can tell exactly what's coming out of their mouths if they know the laws or not. So a person who doesn't know their rights and the laws, they get taken advantage of. So that's why that's very important to me. The other component of that is cultural competency within that. One of the main questions I ask is, because do you know who you are, right? Do you identify with Black? Do you identify with African American? Why? And we talk about historical trauma. We talk about the first human trafficking, which was the Atlantic slave trade, right? And all the trauma that happened and generational trauma that passes down. Okay, how does that show up in our people today? How do we deal with that? How do we heal from that? Right? So we do a lot of issues, and it goes all the way down into finances, where they learn early on, things that I didn't learn, like what is the difference between life insurance, health insurance, investments, beginning investments, those kind of things. How do you do a monthly budget? How do you budget even with the allowance that you're getting, right? Those kind of things. And then there's a apprenticeship with businesses as far as, them aspiring to want to do something, aligning them with different businesses where we can go and visit. Law enforcement is a big one. I got the buy-in from LA Sheriff's Department of them wanting to help and actually be some of the mentors. And then, days in the office or ride-alongs, those kind of things. So all those things are very, very important, because although they'll be in many cases in this community of disparity, we want to make sure that not just educationally, but physically, we can sometimes take them out of that so they can see. Like one example, living down in LA. Now, remember, I'm from Louisiana. So when I finished college to move there, I think within my first week, I was on Hollywood Boulevard because I wanted to see the stars, the Walk of Fame and theater and all that. And I'm like, where the Grammys are and the Oscars and all this. And I remember years later when I started managing some foster homes over in Orange County. And I had mainly, at this time, that was main. I probably had about 3 Black boys. Most of my clients were Latin, so I learned so much about their culture. Fell in love with it, and I would take them out and bring them to Hollywood just so they can see. Because in talking with them, most of them had never been out of their neighborhoods, and you're talking about 17, 18-year-old boys. That's very, on your perspective of the world. And I remember just bringing them there and how they were so excited and they couldn't believe they were seeing the stars. Something so simple, and it was a maybe 50-something minute drive to this. So that's what the Code Black is. Code Black is really to help Black boys learn how to navigate into society and to understand, hey, it is what it is. Yes, we're free in a lot of regards. We have made a lot of progress, but let's be honest, there's still this national and there is a global narrative, and there's a such thing as colorism. There's a sick mindset that comes with it. You're going to have to deal with it because there are groups like alt-right, American Renaissance, and like my brother Harry said, they're educated people. So don't think for one time that they are not ahead of a lot of these companies. They are the head of these law firms and all these things you have aspirations to get into, that there will be a ceiling. because they don't believe you belong. And their mission, as they have come out and said, and you have Ryan Spencer of the alt-right group who sat down with Charles Barkley, says that he's had many interviews, and you have Jared Taylor from American Renaissance, and they believe that the America must be ran by a European model. And they believe that that's how it has to be, and they do not believe they need to include diversity or any of that. So these people exist. So what I want to do is prepare these young brothers for that world that they're going to be living in, and to show them how do not be discouraged. You still can get what you want. That Constitution is for you as well. And here's how you navigate and do that. And when these people show up and there's something that's done wrong, because we're not going to spend our time worrying about racist people and people that are trying to oppress, because it's a waste of time. But when they show themselves, we're going to deal with them. And I'm going to show you how to deal with them. And that's it.
I love to hear that there are people like my strong panel here, strong panel members that are making a change within the communities. I love to hear exactly what Code Black stands for and how you're really trying to educate our youth. I know this deeply impacts our youth and our future of tomorrow, but let's talk about how it's affecting other ages, other genders, and even other races right now.
Yeah. Anyone wants to go?
Go ahead, Ken.
I can jump in there. Well, again, and so yes, Code Black is just for like boys. However, my focus in work is not just with Black, but I'm like, we have to have a focus on that. And if we don't do it, who's going to do it for us? But yeah, it's affecting so many, especially the brown. Let's be honest, Black and brown. And I feel like one of the things that I've worked so hard to do out in LA is to unify those communities. And, our Break the Chains event that we do in honor of human trafficking, this is something that we do every year in January in honor of Human Trafficking Awareness Month. But, the communities that we work out in mainly is, the Compton Human Trafficking Task Force. And this year we worked with the Linwood. And so those communities are heavily brown and Black. And so what we did was really just continue to work to unify those. And those are where we're getting tons of racial profiling, tons of reports of, unjust treatment and things of that nature. So it does. So let's not for 1 minute think that, whites are not feeling it either. Asians are not feeling it. This is some of these police just have an issue, right? But the thing that I focus on more is our Black brothers and our brown brothers right now, because I feel like that's where it's like Black Lives Matter movement, right? You're hearing so much stuff about that. And people are, in my opinion, trying to deteriorate the name and to tear down the legacy. But what it is exactly what it says. I'm not getting into the politics of it. I'm not even a official member of Black Lives Matter. I'm a member because I'm a Black man. And I believe that all lives matter and that all lives cannot matter if Black lives matter. And if the shoes are on the other foot and it was a brown people that were being affected more, then guess what? I'd be saying the same thing, because all lives cannot matter until brown lives matter, because it's a human issue. And so we have got to stand up for justice. And this country, and I have to say this, we want to run around under this thing that we're this country created under God. It's time for us to talk about that too and deal with that. We're supposed to be such a Christian nation, but the same Christian nation enslaved people. This same Christian nation owned slaves and did all these brutal things up until today, right? And they still stands today on Sundays as the most segregated day of the week is Sunday. Am I right or wrong? Right? You have white Black churches, Latin churches, or whatever. So it's time for us to call it out. And that's who I am. I'm not going to do it. And I'm just as hardcore on Christians, and I am a Christian man. I'm probably a little bit harder on them, to be honest with you, because I feel like we have a higher responsibility in many regards. But we got to call this stuff out. It is a race issue, right? And so right now with the Black Lives Matter, what I'm saying is that's the house that's on fire right now. So yes, it matters. No one's going to shut us up with that and to make us think anything less. Yes, all lives matter. But however, right now, who's on fire? And that's what we have to deal with. And I think now the world is speaking out because there's injustice going on. But when you look at those protests, and I was honored to be a part of some in LA, you're seeing every race out there. I've been a part of some where actually Blacks were, the minority there. There were way more whites and Latins and things like that. But it's that new generation that they're just not going to have that. And they realize it's affecting everybody, knows somebody that's being affected by it or have been in some way. And it's time for it to stop.
Yes, very well. Go ahead.
Yeah, Kenny, let me first say this, Kenny, my hat is off to you with regards to the things that you're doing for our youth. black, brown, all races, creeds, and I appreciate what you've clearly been doing for our kids, and that's our future. I appreciate that. But again, you're going back to what we're talking about, and whether we're talking about educating police officers, educating society, or in this situation, educating our youth. It goes back to education, and that's one of the things that, and I know I'm kind of jumping the gun a little bit, Marty, with regards to what are we going to be doing in future. I'm going to, and Kenny, with your help, hopefully when you get down here, what some of the things we want to do is continue this education progress, continue to educate those people who don't know what their rights are, getting money to certain groups that we can help to assist with regards to certain things. But it's time for us to, those that have been more fortunate or able to do a little bit more, let's help those others to get. I live here in the suburbs. My kids don't have to worry about a lot of the things that some of the kids, in some of the inner cities have to worry about. And so it's my responsibility, and people like ourselves, to let's mobilize, let's get involved, let's educate, let's make change. And so, I know we keep talking about these things and using these words, but, with getting with people like Harry, with getting like people with Kenny about things we can really do at the local level. And that's where it starts. We're going to make these changes. We're going to make things better. And I'm just very excited about where we're going moving forward.
Awesome. Yes. Well said.
Yes, I definitely agree. I'm excited of what y'all's platforms that you guys have kind of uncovered today. And I'm excited because we are changing. If you're hearing these, the panel members, they're doing their part right now and changing and educating and putting their foot out there and really putting in some work. I do want to address some of the comments that have been coming up. So Adriana saying, thanks, Ken. I love what you are doing. Adriana's also saying guidance for our young men and women is definitely a start. I can't wait to hear more about your project. So we're getting a lot of love on the movements that you guys are doing. And so we're just going to keep going here. So I know we kind of are talking about, Ken, you really painted it very well, how it's affecting everyone, ages, genders, races. They're all at the protest. They're out there. They're speaking up and having a voice. There's still some cases happening today, unfortunately, after George Floyd. I sadly say that there's cases happening today and cases that haven't been resolved. For instance, the Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Rayshard Brooks, and Vanessa Guillen is a new one. What are your thoughts on these issues, these cases that came after George Floyd?
Oh, well, I think Harry spoke to that because, a couple of weeks ago, we had this one in LA with a Latin brother, and there was a Latin cop, right? And there was 3 cops there, and this is a brown on brown. And when you see that video, and it's circulating, actually, I posted it up on my social media, I think 2 days ago, but basically just the guy's covered up, just holding his head, and this guy just waylaying on him and would not stop. And I was so proud of Jackie Lacey over in LA that from District Attorney's Office, they already pressed charges and, arrest me. Everything was quick because they're like, there was no way you could justify this video. And they watched it over and over and over again. But it's what Harry is saying, where all this stuff, and I wanted Harry to say that because he is the representing law enforcement, because I work with a lot of law enforcement. I have a lot of friends, and so I know they're getting these trainings, right? And so I wanted the viewers to hear him say this. We're getting all that. So what it is, and this is our frustration. So it's like, what else do we do? You're getting all that you need, so you're still choosing it. Because actions speaks, that shows where you're really at and where your heart's at. So you're still choosing to do this stuff. So it's now that you don't know better, because one of the things I believe as a person, that's my philosophy as a life coach, is that you do not do the best you can, you do the best you know to do. And so what Harry has said, these cops know better, but they're choosing to not do better. And this is why we play. And just like they don't want to play with the citizens when we have a bad moment, because I don't believe there's bad people, but we have bad moments. And when someone has a bad moment and it does a bad thing, that it breaks the law, they want to treat us almost like animals and disrespect us from the way they speak to us and everything else. So you know what? It's time for us to make sure that they held to that same, then bottom line, that's it. That's the only other way. Because what do? We're the vulnerable ones here. You're the ones armed, right? and you're a little bit above us with what we've been seeing. So we're the vulnerable here, right? So we're almost like the voiceless. So now we have to make that voice loud by coming together and putting pressure to make sure they have to adhere to the same standards that we do as well. It's always happening, like I said.
Yes, and Harry, I know I see you agreeing there. I kind of want to get to you right now. Hearing these cases and the involvement and kind of what Ken is saying, what needs to be changed in the law enforcement system today?
Okay, so let me say this. And like I've said, the majority of men and women in law enforcement have good intentions. They want to do the right thing. They want to help others. They join to help others and make a positive difference. But it's the few bad apples that find their way into these different departments for whatever reason. They're the ones that make everyone else look bad. And I know people are tired of hearing that, one bad apple spoils the whole. But aside from that, these are the issues. The fact of the matter is these cops are in control of the situation when they get to a scene. Okay, they're in charge. A lot of them take that to mean do what I say regardless of what. Now, Ken has got a great program with the youth and trying to mentor them and help them deal with some of these issues that come up. But my advice would be to let's teach our youth and others to let's adjudicate an issue in court. Let's not give them a reason to get pissed off at you and put you in cuffs or beat you up or do whatever because they're having a bad day or because their wife left them or whatever the reason may be. Don't give them a reason to do that to you. And I know a lot of people agree with what I'm saying, but let's face it, they're in charge. I mean, as much as we hate to say it, they're called or they see something and it's their job to interject themselves into that situation. And their training is not to retreat. Their training is to control the situation. So my advice is, hey, look, let's just say, okay, you know what? Fine. Do what you need to do. You know your rights. You have a right to trial by your peers. You have all these rights, due process. Let's not fight on the streets. Let's just do what they want until we have our day in court. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but aside from pissing them off and now you end up like George Floyd, I mean, those are issues that we've got to address as citizens of this country. We've got to figure out what we can do to prevent that kind of stuff from happening. And that's why I keep harping on this. It's a person issue. It's a character issue. It's that cop has got to have a good heart. You've got to care about somebody. I'm probably the kind of cop that would get shot first before I ended up having to shoot somebody because I would want to give us a chance and another chance and another chance. There's a theory in training called the theory of lag time. And it's where you identify danger and the time it takes for you to identify it and react to it, that's the theory of lag time. That's a period of time where the opponent or assailant will have a split second upper hand on you. That's stuff in training. And so those are things that could be one of the reasons why some cops, I don't want to say trigger happy, but may be more prone to use force immediately in a situation where they feel threatened because they know that they only have that split second. And those are tough decisions to make, so those are issues we've got to address. And that's why I keep saying it goes back to personnel, man. You've got to get people with a good heart. And that's, because it's like Ken and even Darren said, racism is there. You're not going to change racists. You're going to be racist. People are going to have their own belief system. And no matter what you do, you can't train that. You can't train that out of somebody. You can't.
Yeah, and I know, Harry, you brought up a good point of the legal aspect. And Attorney Darren Miller, I want you to uncover the legal aspect as an attorney, maybe representing some of those that have been, been through those situations and personally injured by police brutality. What is it that we can do as an attorney to protect also the common society and go to court and fight in that way?
Well, good question, Marty. Before I even begin to address that, I think Harry brought up something very important. You hate to hear that. I mean, it's difficult as a proud Black man, for example. if I know I'm driving down the road in my, I got a black sports car and it looks fairly nice, and I've been pulled over a few times, and it sucks. It sucks. But the one thing that I've learned, and I've got a 19-year-old son. I've got 4 children. I've got twins that are 16 and one daughter that's 14. My two sons, 16 and one's 19. My 19-year-old, he's the sweetest kid in the world. He wouldn't hurt a fly, but he's 6'3". He's a big boy. He's a big boy, and those officers, if they pull him over, they're going to see him as one thing, as a big black threat. And so it's disappointing to me that, unfortunately, I've got to teach my son, I don't care what those officers tell you. I don't care what they do to you with regards to what they say, even though they're wrong. Your job is to come home to me. Your job is not to fight them. It's not to engage with them. You're going to, yes, sir, no, sir, take the damn ticket. If they tell you to get on the ground, get on the ground. I'll buy you a new outfit. I can get you new clothes. But if you don't come home to me, if I have to go see you in the hospital, we've lost. I'll fight your battle later on for you down the line. And it's disappointing that we have to do those things sometimes. And again, luckily I've not been faced with that. But it's unfortunate that we have to educate our kids just to make it home safe, and you've won to some degree. But look, it is what it is. But again, I'm not going to dwell on those things. I'm encouraged by what I'm seeing, by the Harry Zamora's getting involved. The fact that he is, hey, I'm tired of seeing what I'm seeing in the department. I want to run for sheriff, and I'm going to make changes. The fact that Kenny doing the same thing with regards to making systemic changes with regards to our youth. If we all step up and do what we need to educate our people, to get us mobilized, to get our people in office, to make these changes, we're going to get there. It's going to be a fight, but we're going to get there. So, Marty, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and you know what? I want the viewers to kind of hear what we're hearing, okay? Attorney Darren Miller, you said, you have to train your children that way, and it is what it is. Kenny, you also said, hey, black and brown, this is what I am, so we kind of have to teach that. It's sad to me to kind of hear that as well, that is now what is normalized, and it's not okay. So those are the things that those that are watching, I want you guys to hear those things, because this is not a normal way of thinking. Yes, it's what we're faced with in society, so you kind of have to adjust and you normalize it, but that doesn't make it okay. So I want all of us to kind of come together, those that are watching too, and really listen to some of the passion that's coming out, and they're kind of sweeping it under the rug and say, let's go educate. I mean, it is what it is. Hey, they're first on the scene. That's what we need to change, is that mindset. That's what we need to change, because any color should not feel that way. And so I kind of want to move it a little bit along the way. I know we still have a lot to uncover, but we're getting into the meat of this. Let me go over some of these comments that we have. So I have Victoria saying, unfortunately, the Hispanic community has racism deeply rooted in our culture. I've seen Black Lives Matter spark conversations that will hopefully foster change. There's another one right there that I'm saying, Black and brown lives as well. Kim is saying, incredible panels, such quality conversation. I agree with you. This is quality. This is the type of conversations that if you're not having these at home or through Zoom with your friends and your coworkers, like, these are the conversations we need to have. And this is why I'm very excited. So I kind of want to now spin it off with the media, guys. So let's talk about what we've seen in the media. There's a lot of companies. I'm not going to name any, but a few that you may have seen commercials. They've stepped out. Even some huge franchises that, are not currently on because those things have been canceled, are conveying and reacting to the Black Lives Matter movement. So what do you guys think about these companies speaking up?
I look, honestly, I think it's fantastic. I think it's fantastic. I mean, I think we saw a great example of that even yesterday. We have the leader of our country kind of getting on Bubba Wallace for standing up for himself, when thankfully there was no real racism there. But you got the president stepping out and making comments about him, and as he apologized for, protecting himself, which I just don't agree with. But what I thought was very interesting thereafter is that I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but thereafter it looks like Beats by Dre has picked him up as a sponsor, Bubba Wallace. They were supposed to make that announcement later in the week, and so what did they do? They said, no, we're not waiting till later in the week. We're going to announce this today, and they announced it today for one very reason: to counteract their disgust for the position that the president took. And you're seeing that over and over with regards to these big companies. With when Facebook was essentially letting different racial groups spew their filth out there without filtering anything, you saw companies saying, "Look, we're tired of this. We're not going to stand for it." And you saw companies boycott Facebook. Again, things you've not seen before. And so people are getting engaged. They're getting involved. Companies are taking responsibility. They're saying Black Lives Matters is something that's important. And so I'm just very encouraged by the fact that companies are stepping up. Even if Goodell with the NFL, he's stepping out there and saying that. I couldn't believe that he said that. I know we're not where we need to be. We're not where we need to be. But when you have people like them basically saying, "Hey, I've been wrong. I'm wrong. I took the wrong position on this," and then they're moving back to putting themselves out there with regards to saying some of the things that are right, that's a good thing for all of us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I know. Go ahead, Kenny.
No, I was just going to say, well said. I 100% agree with that. I think with as far as the leader of the nation, that's what I'm frustrated. Yes, this guy, and this is where I say I have a hard time with my community in general, because I'm not speaking for all. When I say I'm talking about the Christian community, I don't care if you're black, white, whatever. Because I'm going to say this is generally, because not all. With this ridiculousness of this man is so godly and so God focused, because he is strategically setting up, choosing Supreme Court judges to go against pro-choice and all these things here. But you have to look at the overall being of a person and stop justifying. He is not. This man does not represent anything close, and none of us are perfect by far, including myself. None of us are perfect. However, he has never spoken out and been a voice. And you're the leader of the country. And anytime he does speak out, he is playing the middle, or he's leaning toward one side. He wants to come out, and anytime there's a fault with anybody screaming racism or injustices or whatever, that's not a part of his agenda. They're not. He wants to say something. He's loud, and he's quick to go on Twitter. But anytime from the beginning, when David Duke, you've never seen KK coming out and endorsing someone like they did when he was running for president. And even on interviews, he never denounced him one time. He couldn't say, I don't know the man. So what I'm saying, this has been his pattern. And so what he does is he resonates with those racist people, and that's what it is. And we have to call it what it is. And I don't want a person like that serving my country, and someone who's mean-spirited and constantly being spiteful and revengeful. That is not going to be the solution. And that's why I have an issue with this. And I got to say this, as our Christian community are so blind to that, because we're easily, tricked and pimped into, because he wants to go after he wants to say he's pro-choice, which, anyway, so I'm going to end on that with that as far as he goes.
Yeah, and look, let's talk about a little bit about what you guys have uncovered. I know this is always a conversation we don't really dive into, especially on this platform. But you guys, our viewers, and as well as our panel members, have heard some of these comments, okay? Some of these comments is the mindset that we're talking about. It's the culture we're talking about. It is where it starts. And it starts in your household, okay? And so we're constantly reminded about those things. I know, Attorney Darren Miller, you brought up the Bubba Wallace and the Confederate flag situation. We're constantly reminded of racial symbolisms like flags, monuments, and we want to put an end to it. But we have to get down to the core of these issues. Right now, Attorney Darren Miller, you kind of stated we're getting started. But if you guys kind of hear within that, there's a core of issues. It gets down to the bottom. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that picture of an island and you see the little mountain on top, but underneath the water, it's steep. Okay. And this is kind of how this is in relationship to that. So how do we begin? Okay, this is going to be a loaded question. So how do we begin by removing that mindset? That's where we start. So what do you guys think about that?
Well, like you said, it starts at home. It starts in the home. You know, I can remember as a rookie cop, some of the motorcycle cops had the Confederate flag decal on their motorcycles. And looking 30, 40 years ahead, those are gone. Has that changed the culture? Have they changed the way they are? No, they might be retired by now. I don't know. But I think that we're seeing a gradual change in society where it's not tolerated, it's being identified, and it's being dealt with. So I think we're taking the right steps, but we need to continue. And it's going to have to be a major concerted effort with everybody saying we've had enough of this, you know, let's stop.
Yeah. And I definitely think that there's a lot of racists out there that also have experienced this. It's not just right now. Every one of you guys should probably say, I've had enough. Like everyone can probably say, or on average, something in regards to this. So I kind of now want to help our panel members. Okay. I want to kind of go to Lieutenant Zamora and I want to ask you, what can the general public do right now? You're speaking to them, the viewers, even some of your panel members, to change the perception between officers and the general public. What can we do?
Well, that's kind of hard to answer because, you know, there's so many different people from so many different walks of life, so many different backgrounds. Some people, you know, in Texas view things differently than California or the East Coast. But I think as a human being, as a person, I think what you can do is show compassion and compassion, love, and respect for others. I think treat someone the way you'd like to be treated. You know, let's if you can't help somebody, don't hurt somebody. You know, I think those are the things we need to focus on ourselves as a person, and let's be better people. Let's be better neighbors. Let's be better friends. Let's take care of our elderly, our kids, our family and friends. Let's try to be a better human being. I think that it starts with us, and we have to convey that thought process and that behavior to our kids, because let's face it, they're going to be the ones taking care of us, you know, 20, 30, 40 years down the road. So I think that our legacy should be leaving kids that are caring, compassionate, and have respect, not ultimately respect for others, you know.
It's a good point. Now I kind of want to turn it over. Go ahead, Darren.
Real quick, just to Harry's point there. You know, tough question, by the way. I'm glad that she gave that question to you, not to me, because I don't know what I'd say. So let me tell you what I did. So yesterday, to address that question, so I'm getting gas at the gas station, right? And there's a couple of officers, and this is in Cypress. And, you know, one of them is a kind of a redneckish looking white gentleman, and then there's a Hispanic officer. And I'm getting my gas. It's no big deal. And they're kind of looking at me, no big deal. And I just blew it off. And then I see them still looking at me as I'm getting my gas. And so after I got my gas, and I had paid by credit card, so there's no reason for me to go inside. But I walked towards the front of the station, and then kind of went towards them, just in a very non-threatening manner. And I said, "Hey guys, I just want to say this to you. Thank you very much for putting your lives on the line for me every day. And I appreciate you guys and the work that you do." And they said, "Thank you." And I walked back. So, you know, again, I don't know what they were thinking or talking about or whatever they might have been discussing. My guess is probably something not so favorable. But regardless of that, I said something nice to them, and then I went on my way. So, you know, I just think that there's just little incremental things that we can do to make things better. maybe not just that, but that's just one of my example of what I did.
Yeah, and that's a good example to segue from what Harry said on being kind to others. It depends on how your upbringing is. It does start in the home, but everybody should be looked at as a human, and definitely treat everyone as such. So, Ken, I want to turn it over to you. What do you think, to help our panel members, that our police officers can do to minimize that police brutality that we've kind of been talking about?
And echo everything the guys said. It's from my heart and who I am as a person. It's being a man of God. That's who I am. That's what I believe in. That's my stance. And I live in a country that professes to be a country under God. So it's time for us to be that country. So what is it going to take? And I don't care if it's just for the police and community or just humanity altogether. It's going to take us to finally put that faith in action together, because it's not just about praying, about an issue. It's about taking action as well, because love is action. And it's time for us to start treating people. So it's not good to talk from a pulpit and, talk amongst yourself in church, but go out into that world now and do stuff like Brother Darren is doing and making a difference, getting involved in communities that you would not have gotten involved into, figuring out ministries and things of that nature, and really trying to show love and admitting when you're wrong. I've had some amazing conversations with some amazing hearted people that admit they grew up very racist. Their mom and dads are racist, their uncles, grandparents are racist, and they have made a commitment to not be that way. And the way to not do that is to unwire that thinking by putting themselves out there with these same very people they were taught to look down upon and to hate. So yes, to answer your question, it's just to finally start being that nation of God and putting those principles into play. And anyone who comes here, that's part of respect, that this is a nation of God, as believers of God. So we're not trying to stop your religion, do anything else, but know that you're coming to a land that is professing to be under God here. And this is how we're going to govern. And this is how life, we're going to do life. And you must come in and get in where you fit in. Right. And so that's what I'm saying. It's time for us to be there. And if we're not going to do that, then stop saying we're a nation under God. Get that off the currency and let's call it. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, those are great points. A lot of you guys gave me chills on the things that you were saying, but that's exactly it. It's the mindset, and it does start with us. I know we've kind of said it a lot in this episode, and we're kind of talking about it starts with us, but we also teach our youth, which is the future of tomorrow. So we can stop it. We can stop it and uncover it there. I have a couple questions, and then we have to wrap up the show. So I have some comments from Mary Lou saying, well said, guys. Angie saying, it's just the tip of the iceberg. And Mary Lou again saying, the more discussion we have, the more people are able to talk. That is the first step. And thank you, Mr. Miller. I definitely agree. Yes. Yeah, so I kind of want to go ahead.
Mary Lou's out there by you, Kenny, by the way, too. She's in LA, so she's a sweet woman. You should meet her at some point. Oh, especially with the TBI stuff, but that's a whole other issue. But anyway, sorry.
Yeah,
Molly,
so we do have a lot of panel members here from Houston, Texas, from LA. You guys are watching from all over. We definitely want to touch anybody, but the main thing is educate to change the mindset. So I want to go ahead and turn it over to our panel members. And I want you guys, what is a good power tip that you want to leave our viewers that are watching in reference to these difficult and some uncomfortable topics that we just discussed today?
I think I vote for, I nominate D.
Okay, sure, I'll go. Look, guys, not to lose hope. Again, seeing that Floyd situation, that hurt me. And I'm telling you, I was so disappointed after that happened. But just to see how the country rallied, the direction that we're going, the things that we can do, it got me excited. And I know that we can do better. I know that we're going to make this country better. I know that we're going to make this world better. The fact that even there was an F1 race this weekend, and what did the racers do after the guys in first, second, and third place? They got up there and they had their Black Lives Matters T-shirts on. I mean, look, we're having an effect. People are watching. and it's changing, and we're getting involved. And come November, we're going to go to the polls. We're going to vote. We're going to get things out there. They're trying to suppress the vote. That's a whole other issue. But we're gonna make sure our voices are heard, that people are listening to us, and that we make change. And we're going to keep fighting, and we're going to make this place better. That's what we're going to do.
Great power tip. Anybody else want to give some
Yeah.
power tips to those that are listening right now?
Well, let me just say this from a law enforcement perspective. Look, I've been fighting dirty cops for a long time, and that was my platform when I ran for Harris County Sheriff. And I'm passionate about this because as a cop, your word is everything. How can you lie on sworn affidavits or lie under oath and then expect the general public to believe you as a person, as a law enforcement person? So it starts with cleaning up those officers that are willing to lie on sworn affidavits. I'm fighting that. So I'm asking the general public, the viewing public, if they want to join me in this fight for justice for our minorities and against these cops that do this kind of stuff. Find me on Facebook, Instagram. I'm on the internet. Look me up, and we're getting together a bunch of people to help us push forward and make a positive change for all of us. And one last thing is, not all lives matter until Black lives matter, and that's what I firmly believe.
Awesome. And I love that. And I'll get to you in a second here, Kenny. We will put your website up on the comment section. That way you guys can see a little bit more of, his standing and that position that he has to make a change. And lastly, Kenny Henry.
Yes, and I join you, brother. Definitely. So, yeah, again, kudos. Again, what my brother said, both of them, absolutely. And I think that it's just going to take, honestly, like, look at what's happening right now all around the world. But look here in America with all these young kids. When I was out there, I talked to a friend who asked me, hey, what do you think about the millennials? They say they're entitled and all that. My brother he's going to law school now. I feel like he's so entitled. And my friend, if he's watching, he knows exactly what I'm talking about. I said, well, that's in general. I said, we can't make it absolute because there's some millennials out there that have great work ethic that are doing still amazing things. But I said, look at the majority of people out here. It is those millennials. I said, and you know what? And it's their entitlement is their strength because they know they're entitled to their rights. I said, look at us, our age group and older. You barely see us here. What are we doing? We have gripes, we have complaints or whatever, but are we willing to sacrifice and come out here like them? So yes, that entitlement is going to change the world. So now we have a responsibility to them, in my opinion, because a lot of them, they're being the front soldiers, the foot soldiers. They're out there, and they're being, as you see, pepper sprayed and all kind of other things. They're strategizing. They're very good. You're seeing on social media, they're DMing where the next protest will be. Still going on. I saw some the other night. And so what is our responsibility? Our responsibility is to make sure that now we're taking this time and we're setting up these different protocols, like what the brothers are talking about, what Harry just mentioned, where they can navigate if they're those who are fighting in qualified immunity, right? To make sure that there is a platform. So, because the protests are going to die down at some point. And where would that energy be directed to, right? So we want to have them to have a place to say here, and let's train them on our strength and how to do this and get them in here. And we continue to fight and move, and we break it down in committees. So there are those fighting the dirty cops. Harry, follow his platform. Let's get this thing huge. There are those who are going to do the Indian qualified immunity. There are those on the educational front, right? Like my brother Darren is talking about. Get on that platform, and let's have these committees, and let's be organized, right? And get this, and maybe America can have a model that the world can follow. But I think that, the conversations is where it starts, but we must also make sure we're working on things that is going to produce a tangible resource. So that's what I say is us here on the ground. There's a lot of movements, but let's mobilize together, find out who's doing what. The first time I'm hearing about my brother Harry fighting the dirty cops. I mean, I'm like all about that because I wanted to from the good cops, right? So here, I want to learn more about that, and I will see what I can do to kind of help expand your platform as well. But I think that's what it's about, people. Hear conversations like this and get online. There are a lot of things. Get online, and you'll be surprised what you're going to find. So,
Yeah, that's very well said. There's a lot of power in your platforms. These three strong men that I have on this panel all have a platform and they're coming here to make a difference. So definitely use your platform. I think now we're in the age that you can just definitely get on your phone and use that platform. So we've come to the end of the show. This has been a great show, and I know it's going to have to be episode 2, 3, and 4 because we are barely uncovering that onion right now. We're peeling off the layers. So I definitely want to say educating yourself and listening are two qualities that we all must focus on. This will not only allow you to grow, but to have these healthy discussions. Having an open mindset allows there to be a solution where you can come from many conversations. These conversations build compassion and empathy for one another to where the wall of hate is lowered. I want to thank you all for tuning in and listening to this important topic being prevalent to our society. I want to thank our panel members, Harry, Ken, and attorney Darren Miller for joining us. Until next time, I'm your host, Madi B. Bye.
Guys.